we have professors in the US who come forward. This is Stephen Jones, who says it's quite plausible that explosives were pre-planted in the 3 buildings. Now that's not the official story. Then we have professors in Denmark. This man is called Niels Harris, and he says, we researched the dust, okay? We researched the dust that we found on World Trade Center, and he says, in the dust, what we have found is a modern version of termite, which we call nanothermite. So this is if you look at criminal movies, right? It's always the case, there's a dead body, and then the special team comes and they dust off every detail, right? To find DNA or find details, and they take it in the lab and they go into these microstructures, which is not my world. But the same thing happened here, and there are people who say, well, we found explosives. And I thought, if they're saying this, we're going to have a huge new debate. But that never happened. Most people never discuss this research. I want to know, where did they get the samples from? Is it really explosives or is it something else? It is important to know. No debate. Another really bizarre thing is that on 9/11 you had this journalist called Jane Stanley. She said a 3rd building has collapsed. Okay, she said this. And now remember, on the internet, everybody's on the internet, people analyze videos all the time. And they said, while she said it, the building was still standing. So that's really bad. How can she say WT7 collapses while it's still standing? How does she know? Who was she working for? BBC World News. And here, the line is the 47-story Salomon Brothers building, that's WT7. Close to the World Trade Center has also collapsed. Okay? That's the line, they put it in. And then people who say, this is incredible, the media is not telling us the truth on 9/11. They said, Jane Stanley is somebody who lies to us. So they attacked that journalist personally. And then BBC World News in 2008 offered a story and said, we're very sorry, we were working on an incorrect news agency report. We had this statement from Reuters. Okay? They hand it on and say, we have it from Reuters. But Reuters is a huge media information system. On September 11, 2001, Reuters incorrectly reported that one of the buildings of the New York Trade Center, WT7, had collapsed before it actually did. That's what Reuters said by email. How they came to this conclusion, no explanation. But understand, a historian has to write history. How do we write history in this context? It's really complicated. The journalist itself, this person, Jane Stanley, she had a very hard time, okay? She quit her job and took a time out because she had some sort of a burnout, because everybody was attacking her as being a liar. And, you know, she, in retrospect, says it was a mistake. She knows that the building was still standing, but obviously, she's not the one to blame. She said, I was thrown, not a question, but a statement of fact. I don't know where that came from. So you have to imagine the journalists on that day were standing in New York, a lot of things were happening, it was a terrible day, and they just read it into the camera, okay? So she didn't do the research for this, so she really can't be blamed. But what you now have is that mothers and brothers of people who died in the attacks also go and question WT7. I lost my son on 9/11. Most people don't know that a 3rd tower fell on September 11. They put up movies on the internet and say, we want that people remember Building 7. They put on websites to have a debate on this. Okay, we come to chapter 5. Chapter 5 basically says the Pentagon is the other side where we have to look at. Now, the important thing for you to notice is that the Pentagon is flat. It has 5 corners, that's why it's Pentagon, but it's flat. It's not like the Twin Towers high, it's flat. So the official story is that it was hit by a plane, like that. This is not a picture, this is a computer simulation to show how low the plane has to fly to hit the Pentagon. And then we have pictures of the Pentagon after it had been hit. And then people went and said, we can't see no plane here. If it hits the Pentagon, it should be here. George Nelson, who worked for the US Air Force and is, his job was aircraft accident investigator and airplane parts authority. He was 34 years in the Air Force. He says, with all the evidence readily available at the Pentagon crash site, any unbiased, rational investigator could only conclude that the Boeing 757 did not fly into the Pentagon as alleged. Now that's complicated. Is he right or is he wrong? You know, as a historian, I have Bush who tells us that the Pentagon was hit by a plane. Then I have these people stepping out and saying, no, it was not hit by a plane. So that's really complicated. We have to write history, remember. So we look at the pictures again, and that's when the fire is extinguished. And the picture that was later shown is when part of the building collapsed, but that's half an hour later. You have to look at the data right after the Pentagon was hit, and not this picture. This is half an hour later. And you had a French journalist who, soon after the attacks, his name is Thierry Mason, said, in 2003, the Pentagon was not hit by an airplane. And that was a huge debate, you know. The 9/11, the big lie, and everybody said he's crazy. And he said, no, it was a missile, you know. The Pentagon fired a missile into the Pentagon and then said we were attacked by Osama bin Laden. That's what he basically suggested. He couldn't prove it, but he said that could be. And he said, we certainly see a hole in the Pentagon at the back of the wall. This is the entrance side, and something penetrated these different rings, and it came out here. So it has to be something very solid. And as historians, we would like to go back to the Pentagon and look at that hole. But obviously you can't do that because it has all been reconstructed. That is in March 2002. What we did get, however, is a video. Many people said, we want a video to see how the plane hits the Pentagon. So after many years, the Pentagon produced the video, and this is the video. It came out in 2006. You see something hits the Pentagon. Something. But it's not clear what. We come to Dick Cheney. He's the vice president on September 11, and he is in the White House when the Pentagon is allegedly hit by a plane. And now we have the former Minister for Transport, Norman Mineta, who was in the White House on that same day. And he says, in that moment, before the Pentagon was hit, Cheney had a strange communication with somebody I don't know, okay? And Norman Mineta went before the 9/11 Commission and said this was the communication. He said, in the White House on that morning, there was a young man who had come in and said to the vice president, the plane is 50 miles out, the plane is 30 miles out, and when it got down to the plane is 10 miles out, the young man also said to the vice president, do the orders still stand? And the vice president turned and whipped his neck around and said, of course, the orders still stand. Have you heard anything to the contrary? Now, we do not know who that young man was, and we do not know what the orders were. And the problem is, this statement was not included in the 9/11 Commission report, although it is an important statement to find out what Dick Cheney was doing on 9/11. Let me come to chapter 6, the put options. Many people don't know that on 9/11, a lot of money was made, okay? It's also about money. On the one hand, through the insurance that had to pay for the destruction of the World Trade Center. On the other hand, you had people who speculated that the shares of United Airlines and American Airlines would go down, and you can speculate on shares that can go down with put options. Those of you who don't know much about international finance don't know put options, but put option basically is a bet that a share will fall. It's nothing criminal, okay? It's happening every day. But on that specific day, you have bets on United Airlines and American Airlines. What we research is a colleague of mine, he's Professor Mark Cheney at the Institute of Banking at Zurich University. He researched whether you also have a lot of call options on that day. Call and put, you know, call means that you speculate that the shares will go up, and put is that they go down. And you need to find out whether there's significant more put. And there's significantly more put, that's clear. And then you looked, yeah, maybe somebody was speculating that the whole airline industry will have problems. And they also speculated on Lufthansa and Singapore Airlines and whatever. But no, they only speculated on United and American. And those were the two airlines involved. So really, this is insider trading, clearly. What does the 9/11 Commission report say? It says, some unusual trading did in fact occur. The volume of put options surged in the parent companies of United Airlines on September 6 and American Airlines on September 10. Yet further investigation revealed that the trading had no connection with 9/11. A single US-based institutional investor with no conceivable ties to Al-Qaeda purchased 95% of the United Airlines puts. So they didn't investigate it any further. And that is incredible. You obviously have to investigate this further. But in the report, it is buried on page 49 in footnote 130. Who's going to find it? I find it. But most people don't even read the report. We have one congresswoman, he's Cynthia McKinney. She said in 2002 that this is not right. She said those people who dealt with unusual put options shortly before 9/11 knew enough to make millions. And you know it's not right to make money out of terrorist attacks. It's not right. So clearly we need to know more. Let me come to chapter 7, Able Danger. Able Danger is an operation that was not known in the years after 9/11. It was a plan to look at Muslim terrorists who are in the United States, to observe them and watch their every move. The 9/11 Commission report fails to mention that a year before the attacks, a secret Pentagon project called Able Danger had identified 4 9/11 hijackers, including leader Mohammed Atta. That was revealed in 2005 by the New York Times. Most people at that time didn't, read about 9/11. They just, went on with their daily business. But it is very important if the leading hijackers had been watched by the Pentagon, okay? Mohammed Atta flew in the North Tower, and Marwan al-Shehri allegedly flew in the South Tower, and they had all been on the watch list. So people who believe in the Lee Hop theory, in the let it happen on theory, let it happen on purpose theory, they say Able Danger proves that those terrorists operated under the umbrella of the Pentagon. Whether that is true or not, I don't know. But you have a congressman, Kurt Weldon, who said, unbelievable, it's a cover-up of information on the largest attack in the history of the country. The 9/11 Commission did not do its job. It's time to get the facts to the American people. He said, we need new investigation into Able Danger. And he said, I can't understand that it's not in the 9/11 Commission report. Thomas Keane and Lee Hamilton, who had written the report, said that Able Danger did not turn out to be historically significant. I'm very surprised that they say that. They just say, this is not significant. They put it aside. Now, I'm a historian with a PhD, and I tell you, yes, it's historically significant. Of course it should be in the report. Of course you should have more investigation on that. Who is the source? How do we know that Able Danger took place? The source is Colonel Anthony Schaefer. He's 42 years old in 2005. He's from Kansas, and he had blown the story in August 2005. He said he had to risk his career by discussing Able Danger. Many people come forward and say, if there were people who found out shady things about 9/11, if it's a conspiracy, then these people would step forward and I would hear about it. Then I say, well, yes, there are people who step forward, but you don't hear about it. That's the main question. Colonel Schaefer was part of a secret Pentagon operation. He said that his role in Able Danger was a liaison with the Defense Intelligence Agency, DIA. There are many different secret services in the US, not only the CIA and the FBI, there's also the DIA and the NSA and a lot more. He was not involved in the details of the strategy used in Able Danger, but he said, I do believe the 9/11 Commission should have done that job, figuring out what went wrong with Able Danger. Because if they watched the terrorists, why didn't they stop them? I'm proud of my operational record, he says, and I love what I do. But there comes a time, and I believe the time for me is now, to stand for something, to stand for what is right. So he stepped up and said, we need more information on what happened on 9/11. Nothing happened. Nothing happened.